All right, welcome into the Final Yard here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. I'm Ethan Skolnick, and follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. Got Louis Sung. You can follow him at Louis D. Sung. We may have some others here join us over the course of the evening. Miami Dolphins snap a 3-game losing streak in Los Angeles. Beat the Rams, who were playing well before they came in. Don't give up an offensive touchdown. Just hold the Rams to field goals. Hold Stafford down for the most part. Do it even while they kept losing defensive backs. They get big plays from Jason Sanders and Odell Beckham Jr. in the win. So sort of a strange night tonight, but they'll take it. We do want to mention our sponsor before we get started, Real Estate Shoppe. You can find them at realestateshoppefl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshoppefl.com. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. Honest, approachable, and smart. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy and a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. It's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. Again, that's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor, 954-268-9812, 954-268-9812, or again, Real Estate Shoppe, 2 P's and an E, Real Estate Shoppe, FL.com. All right, Louis, get to it. I posted a stat here, and I think a lot of the credit tonight goes to the defense, to Anthony Weaver, to the pressure they were able to generate, which I don't think we were necessarily expecting based on 1 sack over the previous 3 games. But also, since Tua's been back, they've scored now 77 points. They scored 70 in their first 10 games of the season. So again, not all of that is Tua being back, but certainly it looks like a more competent operation at this point than it looked previous. But I want to swing to the defense tonight because they did a really good job, I thought, just not giving up the big play, getting pressure, making Stafford uncomfortable. I know the scouting combine guys talked about hitting Stafford on early downs. They did that. I don't know. I mean, this is just the kind of game we were waiting for the defense to kind of step up, make the plays to kind of turn this thing, and they did tonight.
Yeah, it's obvious that Anthony Weaver had himself a fantastic game plan. He's obviously thought about this a lot, dealing with Puka Nacua, dealing with Cooper Kupp, dealing with Kyren Williams. There's a lot of weapons on that Rams offense. And, of course, Matthew Stafford, even at his advanced age, he's no slouch. He's somebody who can still get the job done when all is said and done. However, with that being said, this is a very excellent example of even the most experienced veteran quarterbacks making foolish mistakes, because he had Kyren Williams coming out of the backfield, and that would have been an instant touchdown if he threw it to him, and he just missed him. So let that be a lesson to everybody watching. It's like even the best quarterbacks make mistakes. Okay, it does happen from time to time. So, but with that being said, going back to the defense, yeah, losing the likes of Kendall Fuller, a Cater Coat who went down for a little bit, you ended up having to throw Saran Neal out there. There was a whole lot of stuff going on as the defense was concerned. But the biggest thing that made this was the biggest impact, and as far as I'm concerned, this was why the defense came back to form the way that it did. The return of Zack Seiler. This is the reality of the NFL. Your stars need to be playing, and they need to be making impact plays. If they are out there, they need to be doing things. This is what happened when you lose Zack Seiler, who is by far the best defensive tackle that the Dolphins have. And I don't care what anybody says. He is somebody who is worthy of being considered a star in this league. Zack Seiler makes plays on a regular basis, which not every defensive tackle can say that they do. Zack Seiler being back made all the difference. He opened things up for everybody else. Chop Robinson was able to get his second sack of his career, and so far, even Quentin Bell showed up out of nowhere and actually managed to get a sack today. He actually stripped Matthew Stafford and made a play there. Like, you see all these guys making plays all of a sudden, and I think most of it has to do with the fact that Zack Seiler came back. Him being there made all the difference, and it made the defense function again.
Yeah, it did. No, he did a great job today. And you mentioned that the Bell sack came out of nowhere. They needed to get some production in the pass rush from someone. I mean, they just haven't gotten it recently. But I also, there was a blitz from Poyer late in the game that I thought, thought was a big play. There was a blitz from Holland that was a big play. They rush 4, but then sometimes they rush 5. I thought Wheeler just had a really strong game today. I mean, those 2 receivers we talked about, like which one of them was going to get off. They didn't really let either of them. They both made some plays, but not enough. Williams had a good game, but not a great game. And you mentioned it, Stafford. He had Williams at the end of that game. If he just flips it to him in the flat, like he was running clear to the end zone down the middle. he didn't see him. So that was a big play in the game also. But, so to me, the defense, ultimately you hold a team like that to 5 field goals. I mean, it's about the defense, but they made enough plays on offense. Tua didn't make the big mistake in the second half. You look at the numbers. I think he had the throw to Beckham. Beckham makes the play on, what was it, the third down. They didn't have huge numbers from anybody. I mean, Waddle led them in receiving at 57. He led them in targets with 6. Smith had 45 yards on 4 targets. Mostert, we talked before the game about taking him in receiving. He had the 125-yard reception, which was a big play actually at that point because they were right. That was right after a sack, I think. And Mostert ended up picking that up, that 25-yard gain to pick up the first down. That was a big play. He had 3 targets. Malik Washington had a big catch late in the game. And I mentioned Beckham, who has not obviously done a lot, but 17 yards. Look, Tyreek Hill was 6th on the team in receiving yards in this game. I mean, Tyreek ended up with 16 receiving yards. He had the 1 touchdown, just 4 targets. So, I mean, Tua had at least 2 targets to 7 different players. He threw to 9 different players in all. He was 20 of 28 for 207, a touchdown, an interception, 3 sacks, 89 rating. I mean, not great, but not. I mean, look, again, gave you a chance to win. The previous quarterbacks were not giving you a chance to win, and the running game only averaged 3 yards per carry. Like they did not, to credit our great podcast on the network. Lewis, it's not like they were explosive tonight, but I think they played with a certain amount of control in the second half, and they scored on every possession but the kneel down, and that's what they had to do. They just had to keep getting points.
And that's exactly what the biggest thing here for me is, because I talk about stars coming in and making impacts. You don't want to put it all on one player, but the reality is that Tua runs this offense. Tua is the offense. You can afford to, it's not ideal, but in reality, I feel like what we've learned over the course of this season is you can afford to lose Tyreek. You can afford to lose Jalen Waddle. You can afford to lose a lot of different players, but the only guy that's on this offense that is truly indispensable, and there is no debating it, is Tua. And he made some mistakes tonight. There's no question about that. He wasn't quite as flawless as he was in the Buffalo game, but he still made a lot of really good plays on top of the bad ones that he did make. Most of the bad plays that he ends up making is because he's trying to make a good play. He doesn't want to surrender. He has a never say die kind of attitude. And that's both one of his biggest strengths and one of his biggest weaknesses, because he doesn't know when to throw the ball away. But the fact that he's able to make these plays, like you were seeing him dodging and weaving inside of the pocket, managing to find lanes where he can find somebody open, hitting Jalen Waddle right down the sideline, hitting Raheem Mostert for the big play right after the mistake that he made, making up for it and then some. So you're seeing these things happen in real time. He's making plays that normally we would look at Tua and say, you know what, this seems a little out of character for Tua. Tua doesn't usually manage to do these things. Tua has to just find the open guy, throw it, and that's pretty much all he does. But that's not what we're seeing here this year. What we're seeing is that, again, his evolution as a quarterback continues, because now he's actually able to find second, third, fourth reads and actually get them even after he starts to get pressured. As long as there is somebody to throw the ball to, Tua will find him. That's what we're learning here. And so that is what makes it so that the reason why I have hope for not just this, not just necessarily for this season. Like this season, it's hard to have hope because even now, standing at 3-6, it's very difficult to look at that record and say there's a chance. But mathematically speaking, we have to keep this in mind. And I don't know if I'm going to bring in Hussam or not, because Hussam has no picture and he's muted, so I don't know if he's actually there or not. I'll try to bring him in, but we'll see if he's actually there or not. Okay, so he is there. Okay, so I wasn't sure if he's there or not, but the reality is, the reason I have hope for this regime is because we're still seeing progress, and we are actually in the season alone, mathematically speaking, we are only 1 game out of the final wild card spot. Even sitting at 3-6, we are still only 1 game out of the wild card. Think about that for a second. I mean, the
AFC, but Lewis says we did talk about that. The AFC is bad, and that wasn't supposed to be the case. The AFC was supposed to be the stronger of the 2 conferences this year. It's not, and that gives them a chance to kind of work their way back into this. And I do think, to me, the thing that I take as the biggest positive out of this tonight is they didn't get explosive play from their outside receivers, and they won anyway. And they won kind of a gut check game, which I didn't really see coming from them, and they won it with some guys stepping up and making plays at the end of the game that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate would. So I think you have to look this. I thought they lose tonight. Okay, they lose national TV games all the
I
time.
mean, we
Uh,
all predicted them to
we
lose.
all thought they would lose, and the Rams, like you said, there's weapons on that team, particularly on the offensive side, and they controlled most of them. They didn't dominate the game, but they controlled them. They kind of kept everything in front of them. And Christopher mentions here they got 2 winnable home games. I don't guarantee anything at this point. They've lost to some bad teams this year, but again, they didn't have Tua at the start of a couple of them, and this was the thing. He wasn't going to have a lot of margin for error when he came back. They lost the 2 games, but he didn't play poorly in either. As we talked about in the second one, he played brilliantly. Tonight, he didn't play as well as he did in the last game, the game against Buffalo. But again, after the first half, didn't really make significant mistakes. And as Poldergo says, here's the defense balled out. And, that's the thing. They played situational football today. And they played complementary, and the defense did enough. Again, I thought the Rams were going to go down, score a touchdown, and put real pressure on Tua to kill the thing, and they didn't. Okay, the defense forced them the field goal. I thought it was an interesting decision. What did you think? And Husam's here too. I don't know. What did you think of the Rams' decision to kick the field goal on 3rd down? There, I don't know that it would have mattered, but I don't know. I sort of felt like you take another shot at the end zone there.
I think the Rams were just planning on trying to get that onside kick and play for the points. Overall, they were trying to save some time on the clock where if they did get the onside kick. And it looked like they might have had Duke Riley not fell on the ball itself to basically make sure the Dolphins would win this game. Sean McVay is pretty smart when trying to go for the points and going for analytics and end-of-game scenarios. So that wasn't surprising to me. He just didn't want to waste enough time to see if he could try to score it and go for the 2-pointer at the end of the game.
Husam, I'll get your thoughts on this too, because we started here. To me, I think Anthony Weaver gets the game ball on this one in general. What did you like?
Yeah, definitely. The defense finally stepped up, and if you guys watched the scouting combine with Eric and I, this was the game where we pegged that the Dolphins defense should be able to put a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford, make him make mistakes early on and succumb to the pressure and get sacks on 3rd downs. And that's exactly what they did. They blitz a lot along the right guard where the Rams' weakest point on the offensive line is, and that's where they got most of their pressures and the sacks. And honestly, that's all this Dolphins defense needs. They need to be able to put pressure on every single opposing quarterback and make them crumble on 3rd down, making them think that, oh my God, I'm getting pressure again, or false pressure, because that's what Anthony Weaver creates, and that's what he's done. That's what he did with Matthew Stafford this game. Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He's won a Super Bowl, was fantastic for that Lions franchise, and arguably he could have also led them to a Super Bowl last year or the year before as well, if he wasn't traded. The Dolphins defense with Anthony Weaver, and even before Anthony Weaver, have had trouble trying to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks with big arms and mobile legs. Matthew Stafford is both of those, although not so much of his legs anymore because of his age and durability, but they did what they needed to do. They executed. Mike McDaniel said it coming out of the half, that they're not executing on offense and they were executing on defense. They finally executed on offense on the second half. And it wasn't the cleanest game from Tua. Even when I filter out the interception and the fumble, it was an average game from Tua. And if this is an average game from Tua and the offense can play like that and the defense can play like that, for the next couple of games, the Dolphins should be able to win 3-4 games and get back to 500 and in contention for a playoff spot.
Lewis, how do they get Tyreek going?
This is the reality. I don't think there's really a way to get Tyreek going again, because now you have to pick your spots as very, very carefully. It's obvious what the defenses are doing nowadays. They have 2 safeties over the top to make sure you can't just heave it over and get Tyreek going deep. And they made sure that the linebackers are just backed up just enough so that way you basically are forced to go shallow. And so, but this is the way that things go. Like, think back to the days of the New England Patriots with Tom Brady. He dinked and dunked his entire career into being arguably one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. I will never say he's better than Dan Marino, because he's not, because Dan Marino makes more plays than Brady. I'm sorry. He was just more explosive. But Marino was more explosive than Brady. Can we at least say that much? So
yes.
Okay, so there you go. But my point being is that Brady made an entire doggone career, almost 20 years of playing football, just taking whatever the defense was giving him, whatever that looked like. And if that meant little 5-yard dink and dunks to Gronk and whoever the wide receiver happened to be that day, he took it. And every once in a blue moon, they managed to get a deep shot out there because the defense made a mistake. And that's when the opportunities happen. The past 2 seasons, we've been used to the Dolphins literally designing the offense for Tua to find Tyreek and just launch it out there. Defenses have gotten used to that. They have managed to make it so that he can't do that anymore, because you're not going to run the risk of having 2 safeties out there and Tyreek has to fight both of them for the football. It's not worth it. But that has opened the door for the likes of Jonnu Smith, for the likes of Odell Beckham, for the likes of even Tyreek going shallow routes. Like, as long as you continue to move the chains and just chug your way there, you don't always have to get the 40-yard bomb. You can get 5 yards, 7 yards, 6 yards, 10 yards, whatever the case may be. Either way, you're going to keep moving the chains and you're going to eventually be able to score. That's all you have to do. And that's what Tua does. He recognizes what the defense is giving him and takes it.
And Lewis, I've been kind of saying this privately a little bit. Tua is making good plays, and then he's making goofball plays. You can correct me
at this point.
That's the experience at this point, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But it looks like he's year 3, year 4 Josh Allen at this point, where he makes plays where you're like, oh yeah, that's the Tua we know of, and then you're like, oh man, Tua, come on, you're better than that. Like, it's to the point where he's at the Josh Allen level of making good plays and making boneheaded mistakes. Like, that's what you're gonna get with Tua, unfortunately.
I'll say this: Josh Allen is more suited for that level of play because he's more athletically gifted. Because
Tua has to be more precise than Josh Allen.
They both have this instinct, this hero gene, as it were. It's like, I'm going to put the team on my back and I'm going to make it happen if it kills me. And so, but with Josh Allen, he can do that more because he can run the ball more.
And look, they're both
it has to be perfect.
They're both playing dink and duck style, boring type of football, where in this day and age, like, we're gone from the explosives. Like, you're going to dink and dunk your way down the field. You're going to be ending the game with 220, 230 passing yards because the explosives aren't there anymore. You're going to be running the ball a little bit more. And it's getting to the point where game managers are sought after. And right now, that's what Tua is. He game managed the game well, especially on critical third downs where they needed to convert or get into an easier scoring position for touchdowns and field goals. At this point, you're almost guaranteed 25 to 27 points with Tua as a quarterback. And in this day and age where the NFL is going, that's pretty much good enough to get you.
Well, Hussam, I mean, if you look at his average with 23 today, 20, he's averaging 25 basically since they came back. They averaged 10 over the first 7 games of the season because he was involved in some of that, but not a lot of it. And he's averaged now, I guess his average would be 24.2 as a starter. So you're right. I mean, that's pretty much where they're going to be. I mean, we can talk about there was the outlier of the 70 against Denver and all that, but you're pretty much, you're going to be in that sort of mid-20s range. I want to go through this, and I will shorter show for me tonight, but I wanted to jump in here as the Dolphins get a win. Here's the schedule. So I didn't really want to look ahead to this because to me, I chalked this one up tonight as a loss. But now that it's a win, Vegas at home, Patriots at home, at Green Bay, Jets at home, they're a disaster. At Houston, just played Detroit, should have beaten Detroit in this last game, but I mean, they haven't been what people expected this year. San Francisco at home is going to be a doozy. That's a difficult game, obviously, especially now that McCaffrey's back. At Cleveland, at the Jets. I mean, you can find wins in there.
All but two are absolutely winnable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the schedule's been kind to them this year. It's just unfortunate they dropped 2 games when Tua was out that they almost certainly win when if he plays.
And they
Um,
dropped games when Tua was playing as well. So it kind of goes
right.
both ways.
Lewis is on mute. You keep muting yourself. We're not muting you.
Okay, I can't. I'm coughing. I'm still dealing with this leftover. This is the cough that doesn't end. It goes on and on, my friend.
I understand. I get it.
The situation is that those games where Tua was playing, but the defense suddenly decided they didn't want to play that night. Zack Seiler was missing. That makes all the difference. Like, your best players have to be playing. That's how teams end up winning. There are very few teams in the league. Like, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. If something happens to Patrick Mahomes, I guarantee you they will not be undefeated for much longer. Okay, so that's just the reality of it. Your best players need to be playing, and so you have Tyreek, you have Tua, you have Zack Seiler back on defense, and that is the reason why they were able to win this game. I guarantee you, if Zack Seiler were playing these last 2 games, Miami wins both. I mean that with all my heart and soul. If Zack Seiler was on the defense for those last 2 games, Miami wins both those games, because Zack Seiler is good for at least 2 or 3 plays every single game that he plays. He was good for at least 3 of them tonight. So it makes all the difference when you have your best players out there, and when they are missing.
Do you know who was the culprit that poked Zack Seiler in the eye?
I mean, I don't really know. I don't. Like, who poked him in the eye?
Did we lose Hussam for the punchline here? That was
he muted.
He was
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
That was friendly fire.
He's muting himself when it comes to the question. Like, who poked his eye out, Hussam? You seem to know.
I don't know. That's
you
why
asked.
I'm asking you.
I thought it was a hypothetical. I thought it was a rhetorical question that you were going to give us the answer.
It was, and I was genuinely asking, do we know who poked his eye?
No, I think wasn't that a friendly fire situation?
I thought that's what it was. But
yeah, it was in practice.
But again, who poked him is the question.
I don't know, but whoever did, according to Lewis, cost him a couple of games. All right, so but let's get to it here as we go forward. Who do they need more from? Because this stretch they have to, right? I mean, right now they're 3-6. So you got 8 left. You got to win at least 6, right? I mean, if you don't win at least 6, there's no chance.
Well, even
you got to get to 9.
Right now, at 3-6, Miami is still 1 game out of the wild card, which is bizarre to me, because that means that somehow Miami could end up with a losing record and still make the playoffs. That's what it kind of.
But likely, Lewis, they're going to need at least 9, right? Like, I mean, typically you needed 10 or 11, but you're going to need 9, so they got to get 6. Is there anything that can change the trajectory in terms of the personnel that they have the rest of the year? We're not expecting to see Chubb, right? At this point,
I mean, I think we'll still see him somewhere. Like, I think we'll still see Isaiah Wynn at some point. But this is what Mike McDaniel's doing, is that he's basically like these late season acquisitions is basically what he's treating them as. It's like, this is our trade deadline. We traded for free. We traded for Isaiah Wynn. We traded for a pass rusher in Bradley Chubb. Like, these guys are going to show up eventually, and they're going to give a boost to the defense. And in Isaiah Wynn's case, I hope with Isaiah Wynn he comes back at some point, because if he doesn't, I really don't want to see Lester Cotton out there again. Like, let's not disregard what we saw this today, because Austin Jackson was out, and we ended up having to see Patrick Paul for a couple of plays at right tackle because something had happened to Kendall Lamb. And if something happens to Kendall Lamb and we're stuck with Patrick Paul at right tackle on a more permanent basis, listen, again, I think that Patrick Paul has a lot of talent. I think he has a lot of potential. I did not want to see him this year. I did not want to. The whole point of having Austin Jackson and bringing back Kendall Lamb was so that you didn't have to see Patrick Paul. But nevertheless, if I guess if I had to choose, I would rather have Patrick Paul at right tackle, just because it meant Tamaron Armstead was still there. So I'll take that, I guess. But in reality, you were down your starting right tackle. You lost Robert Jones. For make of that what you will. It's not like Robert Jones was a world beater by any stretch, but you lost Robert Jones and you were stuck with Lester Cotton again. And I still swear up and down the only reason that Cotton is still here is because he was good buddies with Tua in Alabama. I swear that's the only reason he's still here, because he does not fit this offensive line at all. So, but sometimes it pays to make friends with your quarterback. So,
right.
With that being said, Also, I will say this until Coach Eric Smith comes and finds me and just like knocks it out of me. But Liam Eichenberg is a liability at right guard. But he
also
he always draws a pistol up.
extension is about to hit so hard.
Yep.
Usam, I will find you and I will end you if he gets re-signed because of you guys.
He drew one of those frustrated penalties again tonight. Like CK, as he said, he tweeted out like that's his specialty. He got one of those frustrated response penalties today, and that was actually a big play for them. Tua ended up getting sacked 3 times, I believe.
Eichenberg also got shoved out of the way like he was a toddler. I don't like that, man.
I get it. They are playing with him as a liability. I want to mea culpa on one thing before I go, though. I got to give Jason Sanders credit tonight. He made the 3 kicks. He made the 3 kicks, and he made a big one late because they needed that one. And honestly, I did not think he was going to make that one. So look, credit to him, credit to Odell for making a catch there at the end of the game. They kind of won this thing ugly. That's the kind they're going to have to win some games like that going forward. But to win that game on the road on a Monday night, particularly the way things have been spiraling lately, I got to give them their flowers tonight. Hussam, thoughts?
These are the type of games that the Miami Dolphins in the past have failed to win, no matter who their quarterback was, no matter who their head coach was. And as Coach McDaniel says, adversity is opportunity. Hey, your backs are up against the wall. You're losing players left and right. You need to be able to execute in those crucial moments. The quarterback and the defense were the ones leading the way for the entire team. And honestly, they're going to have to do that throughout the end of this season if they want any chance in making the playoffs. And not only that, shout out to this Miami Dolphins team as being the only team in the state of Florida to win a game this sports weekend.
Yeah. Well, no, the only football team. The Panthers won.
Oh,
Panthers won,
and the Florida Panthers. And
the Heat got one yesterday, but the football thing is true. It was I think 0 of 11, including all the college teams before the Dolphins won on Monday, and that was not the one that I was expecting. All right,
the Bucks, the Jags, the Hurricanes, the Gators, the Seminoles, the UCF,
Bethune-Cookman, FAMU. I mean, everybody. FAU. They all lost. Yes, the Heat did win yesterday, and the Panthers always win. Like we just assume the Panthers are going to win at this stage. They're the team that never loses. I think
we've gone over everything at this point. Like, there's not really much to say. We won. We had to
they won. They won. Everybody's happy tonight for one day. We'll see. They got 2 home games coming up. Check out the coverage. Of course, Pulse of Fins Nation, Inside Leverage shows during the week, as well as the work that Eric and Hussam do on Scouting Combine. And I'll probably do with Dono a Dolphins episode this week as well. All right, everybody have a good night. It's 11:37. Get some sleep. We'll see you over the course of the week. Dolphins now 3-6.